Okay, we'll start with this. Late yesterday, news broke that a big fight is happening south of the border. That's right. Yamileth Mercado will be defending her WBC Super Bantamweight title against Mexican legend,
former champion Bobby Juarez.
With this news, I guess we can rule out any unification matches this year for the reigning champion Yamileth Mercado.
This fight's happening late next year, so I doubt she's going to end up unifying with anybody before this year is out.
Yami Mercado is one of two Super Bantamweight champions that will be seeing action in the month of October. She's going to be seeing action, as will France's own WBO champion, Sigaling Lafarge. She's going to be defending her WBO title. Yami's taking on Bobby.
Bobby Juarez, Mexican national, Mexican legend. Fabled career, a veteran of 70 professional contests.
70 professional fights. She was last in action late last year against another Mexican legend like herself, Jackie Nava, who's supposed to be having her swan song, her final fight as a professional boxer very soon. Barbie was thoroughly outclassed by Jackie Nava late last year south of the border.
That was a fight that was talked about for a long time, and when it finally came into fruition, we found out who the better technician was.
We sure did, and it wasn't even close. Barbie, in spots, looked like she didn't even belong in the same ring as Jackie Nava, and that's not a knock on Barbie, but Jackie seemed many levels above Barbie Juarez. Barbie,
she's a characteristically cerebral fighter. She's a technician.
She's not an artillery fighter. She's not a pressure fighter. She's not the kind of fighter that looks to win a fight through strength of arms or activity. She's very much a technician, a tactician, and at 42 years old, coming right off a one-sided loss to Jackie Nava late last year in October, set to return to action this year in October.
What's that, a year? A year of inactivity for a fighter in their 40s?
They say bad things happen in threes, and you will notice that Barbie Juarez in the last 2 years, she's
taken some one-sided beatings in the month of October, if you've been paying attention.
Late 2020, she took on her countrywoman, Yuli Hangluna, in the month of October, in defense of what was Barbie's WBC title, and she took a one-sided beating in that fight. I'm surprised that she finished it on her feet. She's tough, she's durable, but she wasn't ever in that fight.
She wasn't in that Jackie Nava fight either.
The following year, in the month of October, she suffered another one-sided beating at the hands of her countrywoman, fellow legend, fellow pioneer, Jackie Nava. And now she's set to take on the young upstart, the young champion, Yami Mercado, this year in the month of October. Not an encouraging omen.
Not when Barbie Juarez, the night of the fight, will not have fought in a year's time, and Yami...
Well, Yami's actually fought in the last 12 months. She saw action earlier this year in April against Isis Perez. She won a unanimous decision. So where Barbie is already an aging fighter, an aging veteran, she also has ring rust and cobwebs to shake off, whereas Yami's a lot younger.
She's 18 years younger than Barbie Juarez. Barbie Juarez is 42 years old, whereas Yami's a very spry 24.
And yeah, there's having experience on your side. Barbie's got a lot more professional experience in the pro ranks than Yami does, but there's also such a thing as too much experience. And I think that's what we're looking at here. A couple of years ago, I would have favored Barbie Juarez to win this fight and win this fight on points, to work around the come-forward aggression and volume punching of Yami Mercado, but here today...
No, I can't favor her to win this fight. Not under these circumstances.
Not here today. Not at 42 years old. The night of the fight, not off a year of inactivity, and not coming right off a demoralizing beating, a demoralizing loss to her countrywoman, Jackie Nava. Barbie Juarez probably figures that she's a much better technician and a more put-together and experienced boxer than Jamie Mercado. That's likely what she's telling herself.
It's likely why she's taking on this fight, not realizing those rough and tumble fighters.
Those physical fighters, those volume punchers that look to crowd you, you might be able to work around that when you've got the sharpness and the reflexes.
You might be able to work around that when you've got your legs under you. You're 42 years old.
Last 2 years, the month of October, when this fight is set to go down, has been kind to Barbie Juarez, and I don't anticipate that's going to change this October. The safe bet, at least from where I'm sitting, is Yamileth Mercado to win, Yamileth on activity, Yamileth on points.
That's not saying that Yamileth Mercado doesn't have her drawbacks as a fighter. Her defense is leaky.
She is somewhat flat-footed, not particularly good on the back foot. She's actually at her best on the front foot, barreling forward, throwing punches in bunches.
I mean, there are holes there. There are holes there that can be exploited to land punches, but Barbie's never actually been a very big puncher.
She's never been a knockout merchant. Not that Yamileth Mercado is easy to knock out. She isn't. She went the distance with Amanda Serrano upstairs at featherweight, for God's sakes. If Amanda couldn't knock her out, fat fucking chance a 42-year-old Barbie Juarez is going to do it.
And where in the past Barbie Juarez might have been able to manage the distance against Yemi Mercado as she barrels forward?
At 42 years old, coming off a loss, the night of the fight, she will not have fought in a year's time. I can't trust those 42-year-old legs to get out of the way and manage the distance safely. So from where I'm sitting, Jamie Mercado.
Jamie Mercado on points. Jamie Mercado on activity and sheer volume.
Jamie Mercado to retain her WBC title is the pick in October.
And you're still planning to, you won't fight again at the end of the year?
No.
You'll come back next May.
Yeah.
And again, probably the Zurdo-Bivol winner looks
No,
to be those.
if Zurdo, I don't want to fight with Mexicans. So I don't want to fight with Mexicans, and I think Zurdo have a lot of chance to win, and I want him to win. If he wins, we'll see if I want the rematch with Bivol. I don't know.
Insights from the man himself, Canelo Alvarez, as to what the future might hold beyond the Gennady Golovkin trilogy and beyond the upcoming light heavyweight title fight between Zurdo-Ramirez and Dimitri Bivol. If Dimitri Bivol wins, he may pursue the rematch. If he doesn't, and Zurdo emerges the victor, Canelo has no immediate plans to fight him. And these comments are being received with mixed reviews, mixed feelings. Why is it? Why exactly? Is it that Canelo Alvarez doesn't want to fight his own countrymen? Why is it that he doesn't...
Why specifically? What about that is off-putting to Canelo Alvarez?
Why has he made a conscious decision to put off any domestic rivalries with Mexican nationals, his own countrymen? I mean,
domestic rivalries are the best rivalries, not exclusive to Mexican fighters in a very general sense.
Domestic rivalries are the best rivalries. They do make for the best fights.
They do.
Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner.
Classic rivalries like Hearns versus Hagler, Hearns versus Leonard, Leonard versus Hagler.
Good domestic clash, a good domestic rivalry is sure to attract a lot of attention. I mean, at least they have in the past. So what about facing his own countrymen might be off-putting to Canelo Alvarez? It's not like there are all that many Mexican fighters at or around 168 and 175 pounds. It really is just Zurdo Ramirez. David Benavidez is of Mexican descent, but he's not actually a Mexican national.
He's not.
The answer to this question might seem elusive. It's quite difficult to know Canelo Alvarez's mind and why he is so averse to this proposition. So this proposition would render fights like Morales versus Barrera.
Yeah, fights like that would be non-existent.
It's very hard to know, but I can only tell you what I think. And if you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do. This isn't like blowing off Demetrius Andrade or Jermall Charlo, those fighters that don't have much of a following to begin with.
This isn't like blowing off David Benavidez either.
This isn't like that. And this isn't like that for more reasons than one. For starters, none of those fighters are about to share the ring with Dimitri Bivol, the man who very recently beat Canelo Alvarez, you understand.
None of those guys are about to share the ring with that guy. None of those guys are about to fight him.
Zurdo Ramirez is. And if Zurdo, by some chance, renders Dimitri Bivol battered and bloody. That grim specter, that image, that visage.
It's going to leave a lasting impression because Dimitri Bivol is a fighter who seldom ever loses a round, let alone loses a fight.
And if he were to lose the fight to Zurdo-Ramirez, the question would then become, well, why was Canelo Alvarez more interested in the title when Dimitri had it, as opposed to now that Zurdo has it?
Which will lead you back to Canelo Alvarez's stance on facing his countrymen. He doesn't want to.
But whether he wants to or not would quickly become besides the point, as the Mexican nationals themselves and those Chicano fans here stateside, those fans that move the needle, those fans that have made Canelo Alvarez the biggest draw in boxing in this country, a good number of them may begin to turn against him the way they turned against him years ago when the Gennady Golovkin fight, the first one, was the talk of the town, when that was the hot topic, and Canelo Alvarez didn't go right into that. He chose to chuck his WBC title, chose to do other things instead. A lot of the fans, a good number of them,
when he chose to delay that Golovkin fight after the Cotto fight, that was supposed to be a segue right into the Golovkin fight. When he did that,
a lot of those Chicano fight fans here stateside, they actually turned against Canelo Alvarez and sided with Gennady Golovkin. I can remember that time being a time when Canelo Alvarez's stock was at an all-time low. And it wasn't really until Canelo Alvarez fought him for the second time.
And it's not just that he fought him for the second time, it's the way that he fought him.
It wasn't until after that second fight that Canelo Alvarez was redeemed, and his stock shot up through the roof. It's been there ever since, and that could change. Could change if Zurdo-Ramirez ends up beating Dimitri Bivol and Canelo Alvarez maintains that he refuses to fight him and he refuses to fight any other Mexican nationals. This is different. It's different because this guy's about to share the ring with the guy that just beat you.
And if he beats that guy, people are going to want to see if he can beat you.
It's the people you have to pay attention to. It's the people in all of this you must mind, that the same Chicano fans that have so elevated Canelo Alvarez to this position as the biggest draw in boxing in this country, a good number of them may begin to turn against him if he doesn't fight Zurdo.
It's not as simple as blowing off Jermo Charlo or Demetrius Andrade, guys who really ain't got that many fans to begin with.
It's not as simple as blowing off David Benavidez and ignoring that vocal minority that seems to prop up all these PBC fighters and their paper-thin resumes.
They can be ignored because there's not enough of them for anybody to give a damn.
If those Mexican fight fans that have so elevated Canelo Alvarez to the position of this country's biggest draw in boxing, if they see Zurdo-Ramirez go in there with Dimitri Bivol and dispatch him in all the ways that Canelo could not, if he handles him in all the ways that Canelo Alvarez could not, you don't think they're going to start clamoring for that fight?
They are. And he can't ignore them.
He can't afford to ignore his own paying public, as they'll be the ones that start to hit him in the pocket.
That's where it hurts the most.
The event that Zurdo wins that fight later on this year, this is a situation that will need tending to, though it could all end up being much ado about nothing, as most people feel that Dimitri is too cerebral a fighter, too streamlined, and too nuanced for someone as crude and unremarkable as Zurdo-Ramirez. I mean, if Dimitri wins,
that'd pretty much kill this conversation.
And this would all end up being much ado about nothing. There's a lot on the line this fall when Zurdo-Ramirez shares the ring with Dimitri Bivol. A lot on the line for Zurdo in particular, as this could be the launch pad that catapults him to that next stratosphere. And all he's got to do is get past Dimitri.
Though that's easier said than done. Just ask Canelo Alvarez.
It ain't easy. And just in keeping with the theme of all things super middleweight and light heavyweight, all things Matchroom, all things DAZN, Eddie Hearn took to his social media to officially announce a huge new partnership with DCT
Abu Dhabi,
with the launch of our Champion Series in Abu Dhabi. First up, Bivol versus Zurdo-Ramirez, a huge card of World and Undisputed Championship matchups live on DAZN Boxing. Press conference tomorrow in Abu Dhabi. You'll notice the active words, the action words. First up.
First of several, first of many.
Champion Series. This doesn't sound like it's a one and done situation, a one-off situation between the people over there at Matchroom and the people over there at Abu Dhabi that are so interested in bringing big-time boxing to that region of the world, that corner of the planet. I've known about the deal for some time, and I've talked about it in passing several times here on this channel. Jessica McCaskill versus Chantel Cameron is set to be on the undercard of this fight. This fight's set to go down in November between Dimitri and Zurdo.
I was told that Jessica and Chantel's fight might be for undisputed.
There are those out here in the West who would prefer that these fights happen in either the United States or the United Kingdom, but that's not how things work in the sport of boxing. You do the fight where the fight and the fighters stand to make the most money. And if that's Abu Dhabi, it's Abu Dhabi.
Quit your crying.
For how many years now have I been telling you guys here on this channel that boxing is a world sport? It's a global sport more now than it ever was in the past. In the past, the American audience and the American market dominated the big-time fights and the big-time fighters, but that was the past. That was your father's era of boxing, not yours.
In the past, foreign fighters would have to come to America and attempt to appeal to an American audience, but that's not the case anymore.
American audience and the American fight fan is not now what it used to be. For God's sake, American fight fans barely support their own fighters, their own homegrown talent. So why should foreign fighters have to come here and pander to them?
Do you remember all those content creators and all those bozos that were demanding that Terrence Crawford fight Sean Porter, only so that when he did...
They were only demanding that Terrence fight Sean Porter because Sean gave Errol Spence Jr. a hard fight. They had more energy, seemingly had more energy for a Porter versus Crawford fight than a Spence versus Crawford fight. And when the fight finally got done, and when they got the fight over the line, where were these people? Because it sold next to nothing at the box office.
You're wasting your time trying to cater to those morons.
You would be, but Eddie Hearn isn't. Matchroom is international.
This isn't a Golden Boy Promotions show, even though it does involve one of their fighters. It's Matchroom that has the partnership with the people over there in Abu Dhabi, not Golden Boy.
Those investors over there in Abu Dhabi that are very much interested in bringing big-time boxing to their corner of the globe, that part of the world. And I've no doubts that they are footing the bill for all of this. Matchroom could just as easily stage these fights in a more conventional market for them, a UK market, a US market. But if they landed in Abu Dhabi, it's because somebody in Abu Dhabi seems to want them.
Matchroom could easily put on these shows on their own dime, on their own time, but somebody in Abu Dhabi is willing to pay big cash to bring these fights to their neck of the woods.
Which is no sweat off my back because I got the best seat in the house. I'm going to watch all these fights from home anyway.
Where I can scratch my balls with impunity round after round.
And reckless abandon. This kind of foreign interest opens more doors than people realize. When you have people with long money, long cash, willing to finance fights, that many more fights, big ones, become possible.
You know, this is confirmation of what I already knew.